In this lesson, moving forward, I'm going to talk about how to go about downloading Docker for your Windows machine or your OS 10 or Linux and so on. So first things first, let's navigate to docker.io. So I'm going to in fact type in download Docker in your Google search and hit the enter key. On your keyboard, it'll bring up the Docker toolbox, Docker, install Docker, and so on. So the idea is to first show you the actual home page of Docker. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this link right here where it says build, ship, and run any app anywhere using Docker. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and this will take you to the Docker homepage. You could have just obviously typed the URL directly to go to this site. So you can explore several options, but I'm going to go ahead and click on Get Docker because I'm going to show you how to download it. So several ways, by the way, you can download this. The newer Windows version is also available, so you can download it for Windows, in fact, and use your PowerShell terminal in Windows to run commands. Or you can download Docker package and install it on your Oracle virtual machine. So a couple of ways you can do it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and simply scroll down. So instead of installing for Windows, let's see if I can click on where it says get started with Docker. And what this will do is take us to a page where I'm going to go ahead and download the Docker toolbox. And this Docker toolbox allows us to download the Docker for Windows. So I'm going to click on the download for Windows button. And of course, our toolbox comes up, executable file. I'm going to click on save to save it to my folder. And it's going to start the download. Now, while it's downloading, I want to show you what this toolbox does for us. So this toolbox contains Docker Engine, Compose, Machine, and Kitematic. This Kitematic app is wonderful because it allows you quickly to create containers and images, Docker images. And we talked about containers in one of the previous lessons, but just a brief overview of what a Docker image is. Of course, I'm going to get more detail in depth in subsequent lessons, but just so you have an idea that a Docker image is what Docker creates that you can ship. And these images can of course have containers that you can use to ship to your Google Cloud Platform, for example, or any other OS. So once you're on the Docker toolbox page, just have a look at what this toolbox is all about. There are other options such as an overview of the toolbox, the get started guide, and so on. Okay, but if you're running a Windows machine, then we will need the Docker toolbox so that we can run Docker. Alright, great. So once the Docker toolbox executable file is downloaded, simply click on the executable file to run it. Click Run for the open file security warning. And this is again going to start the installation process for the Docker toolbox. Brings up the user control dialog box. Simply click Yes. And the Setup Docker Toolbox wizard comes up. Simply click Next. Select the location of the file or the Docker Toolbox where you like it saved on your computer. So you can browse and change the folder path or leave it as a default. Click Next. Make sure you have these options selected: Docker Compose for Windows, VirtualBox, or Kitematic for Windows Alpha version, and then Git for Windows as well. Now, we did install the VirtualBox, or if you have a VirtualBox already installed, such as the Oracle virtual machine on your computer. For example, let me show you this. We already have this open here. So here's the Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager. Then you can again go to virtual.org or virtualbox.org to download the Oracle VM. So if you already have this installed, you can use this and then run Docker on the Oracle VM. Or if you're downloading the toolbox and you wish to install or use the default VirtualBox that comes with Docker, you can leave this box checked. So I'm going to leave it checked so that we can actually see what this Docker toolbox does for us as far as Docker is concerned. So I'm going to click Next, create a shortcut, add Docker binaries to path, upgrade boot to Docker VM. So this is again the virtual machine, which is the boot to Docker. I can also install the VirtualBox with NDISS driver. That's optional. If you want to check this box, that's fine. If you want to leave it unchecked, that's fine too. So I'm going to leave it unchecked. Click next. And ready to install. I'm going to click on the install button. And this is going to extract the files and then of course install the Docker toolbox on your computer. Alright, once the Docker toolbox setup is complete, click finish, and it's going to complete the installation for the toolbox. So this is how you would go ahead and install the Docker toolbox. Of course, it brings up the Docker's folder and gives you the shortcuts as well that are placed within your programs menu in Windows. So you can go ahead and click on the Docker Quick Start Terminal or the Kitematic Alpha. So let's go ahead and in fact open up our Quick Start Terminal, and this is where you would go ahead and use Docker. And notice it automatically pulls up the boot to docker.iso, which is the image file for the virtual machine, and it starts to create the virtual box called VM as soon as you bring up the Docker terminal. So let's minimize this. The user account dialog box comes up. Simply click yes, and it's going to install the VM for you. So there's one way to go about downloading Docker and running it so that you don't have to download a separate Oracle VM box, for instance. So the UAC comes up one more time, and this time it comes for the VM box for Oracle because I already have it installed. If you don't have it installed on your computer, then this is not going to show up. So click yes. Perfect. So it says Docker is configured to use the default machine with the IP address as displayed on the screen. So in this lesson, I want to demonstrate how to go about downloading Docker and installing it. You can again install it on the own virtual machine that comes with the Docker toolbox, or you can of course use the Oracle VM or any other VM as well. So as a practice exercise, go ahead and download the Docker toolbox, install it, and then let's move to the next lesson.